Um, we have Dr. Chockalingam as our guest speaker for today, and he's a professor of medicine at the University of Missouri. He has over 65 publications and gives lectures on stress, cardiomyopathy, and heart failure. He will discuss how he promotes awareness of heart health and advocates for diet, exercise, and lifestyle to treat his patients. He has created a Heartful Living cardiac wellness program for improving health through holistic processes, and he is the founder of High Life Journey, which is a nonprofit giving cardiovascular disease prevention information to individuals all over the world. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, Dr. Chockalingam, and um, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much, Trisha, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to virtually visit Atlanta today and share some of the work that we've been doing here now for the last 10 years. I'll try and go ahead and share my screen. And if you're not able to hear or if there is some interruption, please unmute yourself and tell me. Otherwise, the ideal way that we can do this for a Zoom meeting might be for me to go over the slides in the next 40 minutes or so, and we should have still another 20 minutes to answer questions and open it up for a discussion. You're able to see my slide set as a full screen?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm going to request everyone to mute yourself so that we can hear what we are talking. And then in about 40 minutes or so, we will open it up for question answers. We'll go ahead and get started. Thanks so much once again, Trisha, for inviting me to talk on diet, diabetes, and heart health, the emerging evidence. My disclosure is High Life Journey, which is our nonprofit that is aiming at improving cardiac health and self-resilience through self-inquiry. So today, these are the three things that we want to touch on. The role of diabetes and how it is very, very closely tied to obesity. And then the link between heart disease and aging itself, which is actually more surprising the more I look into it. And then finally, a little bit about our SMILE and huge programs for improving heart health. First, we'll talk about diabetes. This graph from 1980 until 2015 in the x-axis looks at the incidence per 1,000 people of diabetes. If you look at it, incidence or prevalence, both is about 3 in 1,000. But over the last few decades, it has dramatically increased about threefold. So what is causing diabetes in this country to go up so alarmingly? If you look at the prevalence of obesity and diabetes by county in 2004, 2010, and 2016, 3 time points. This is how the US map for obesity and diabetes looked in 2004. You're seeing more population in the eastern part of the US. So if you look at a night light of the US map, it will also look somewhat similar to this. So this probably reflects the US population, but also in the West Coast, there's a lot of people, but you're not seeing much diabetes in 2004. Fast forward to 6 years only, increased incidence throughout the US. And if you fast forward to 2016, it has gone up so much more. So this is the alarming increase that we are talking about. To answer that question, why we are seeing this increase, we cannot just look at the last 15 or 20 years. I went back 100 years, 1,000 years, and I went back all the way to human evolution. And this is a simple picture showing where mankind started in Africa and slowly migrated because of so many reasons for search of food and safety and shelter. And that's how we have populated the entire known world. And in the last 10,000 years, especially, there have been so many more changes in the form of agriculture, settlements, and other changes in our dietary patterns and physical activity that have contributed. If you look at our pre human ancestors, walking and running have been a part of life. So that is how we all evolved. For food, shelter, or survival, every day we averaged about 10 miles. It's a lot of distance that our ancestors had to cover necessarily to survive, to get food in their mouth and to feed their families. So this has been part of who we are. I would compare that to a well oiled racing car. Fast forward to today, unfortunately, this is where mankind is moving towards excess weight. And what is the simple explanation? There is no one answer. It may be the faster pace of life, the standard American diet. That's what I shortened to SAD diet, and being more sedentary because most of us now work in desk jobs rather than physically involved in hunting or farming, and more urbanization and loneliness may play a significant role. This is the first time in entire human history that people are choosing in their adult life to stay alone rather than trying to find a life partner and having children and making families. So being alone may also contribute to people becoming more unhealthy. So these are global trends. It is not specific to the US. So I showed you a car and I'm showing you a truck now. The message is this truck is not going to be able to keep up with the car. We all know that intuitively. Although this truck carries probably 1,000 times more gas than the race car. So the amount of gas that both the vehicles carry, I'm comparing to the food reserves that we carry in the form of adipose tissue, commonly called fat reserves or obesity. World Health Organization says on average a woman requires 2000 calories and a man requires 2500 calories daily. The average American, however, is now consuming closer to 4000 calories. This is more than 24% increase in the last few decades. So this is a huge real problem. People were having about 3 meals every day. Now the average number of meals in the United States is closer to 5.5 meals. Or so many times we are eating. That's what I'm trying to highlight. So compared to 1960, if you look earlier, I showed you diabetes prevalence. Now I'm showing you obesity prevalence. From 10, it has gone about 50 in the last few. Currently at about 33% of the population, but by 2030, unfortunately, more than half the US population is projected to reach obesity levels. If you compare the US with the rest of the world, if you are in Japan or Korea, you're the luckiest with the lowest amount of obesity percentage. This is about 3 to 5% only. And most of Europe is about 10 to 12%. US is the highest level of obesity, head and shoulders above the rest of the world. This is another unfortunate reality where I come from. India is also at US levels, although India is a poor country. I'm talking about urban India, the big cities, Chennai, Delhi. We are seeing so much obesity already. And India is a poorer country with much lesser resources. And despite so many people not having sufficient food to survive, we are seeing obesity as epidemic levels. So this is how we define based on body mass index. Body mass index means weight divided by height squared. That is the formula. Google will tell you what your BMI is. If you put the height and weight into the internet, you can find it out very easily. Normal BMI is between 18 and 25. Overweight is about 30 BMI, and obesity is when a BMI exceeds 30. So this is what I'm saying is already at 30% and projected to go to 50% in the US over the next decade. If you look at India, the same cutoff itself is different because there is so much more risk for metabolic syndrome, coronary artery disease, and its complications and early mortality for people from India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, uh, these southern Indian and Asian countries. Normal BMI is only up to 23. Overweight is up to 25. And anybody with a BMI of 26, 27 in the US will be called uh, overweight, but in Indian standards, it is already obesity. That is what we have to remember. BMI is reasonable for most people, but if you are athletic and you build muscle, it may actually show your BMI as 30, 35 because muscle is actually heavier than fat tissue. Another simple tool, which may be even more direct predictor of cardiac risk and metabolic syndrome, diabetes risk, may be waist circumference. This is very easy. What is your pant size? That's all we need to ask. For men, up to 40 inches, and for women, up to 35 inches is acceptable for most of the world, not only the US. But again, for the same South Asian countries, it is 35.5 for men and 31.5 inches for women. So this is much more strict criteria if you are of South Asian origin. So I just showed you that the graphs for diabetes and obesity overlap so closely, and we have to really look at them as a problem that is lifestyle and obesity related, which is diabetes and metabolic syndrome. Now, let us look at some cardiac issues and how this is so closely interlinked with aging itself. Of the people who are in today's meeting, a third are going to lose our lives at some point because of heart disease. We are all going to lose our lives at some point, but we have to recollect that a third of total mortality is cardiovascular disease related. This is the costliest disease in the US, accounting for $550 billion in 2016, and this is projected to exceed more than $1 trillion in the next 15 years. If I have to tell you what causes heart disease, how do we prevent heart attack, then this slide is only the introduction. I'm not going to go through all the details in this slide, but obviously, as we grow older, that ends up being a big risk. And diabetes, smoking, hypertension, lipids, lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle itself is an independent risk factor, family history. Inflammation is one thing I wanted to point out. So all these are several things that interact and increase our risk for heart attack. This is a slide from a new paper that looks at diet and how it increases inflammation. Whatever we eat either has increasing inflammation in the body or reducing inflammation in the body. So, which foods increase inflammation? This is what I want you to remember. Red meat, beef, pork, processed meat, organ meat, refined carbohydrates. That means white bread, white rice, sugar, and sweetened beverages. That would include nearly everything that we drink, including fruit juices, soda, Gatorade, Powerade. All these things have added sugars in them. All the excess sweetness, meat, and the chemicals involved in processing of this increase inflammation for our bodies. So, which foods reduce inflammation? Vegetables, whole grain, which means instead of white rice, if we are able to switch to brown rice, quinoa, multigrain bread, whole wheat bread, fruits, not the fruit juices, the real fruits, whichever fruit you like is anti-inflammatory. A little bit of tea and a little bit of coffee and maybe a glass of wine may be okay to reduce inflammation. There are several other foods that have anti-inflammatory properties. So why is this important? These are the lipids that we are familiar with: low density, high density lipids, triglycerides, and we have so many inflammatory markers: interleukins, TNF alpha, high sensitivity CRP. All these names you might have heard in the COVID world, because these things we check for in patients with COVID to see how sick they are and whether they are going to make it through that infection. But again, our food increases inflammation in our body. COVID, once in a lifetime problem, but food we have every day. So if we make the right choices, we have a chance to reduce inflammation in our body. Why is that important? The same paper in the most prestigious cardiology journal shows if the inflammatory potential of a food that we are eating increases, then the risk for heart disease substantially increases 50%, 70%. So, this is the maximum benefit that we can gain with the 5 or 6 medicines that we give for heart patients. I'm sure you have heard the word statin, atorvastatin, rosuvastatin, and blood pressure medicines, and what aspirin, Plavix, all these things put together, we get about 60-70% risk reduction. Just with diet, we can have exactly same amount of risk reduction if we make the right choice in eating healthy. So this is what it is: leafy vegetables, moving to multigrain, avoiding white rice, white bread, sugar, and salt, fruits, having more tea, coffee, and a little bit of wine may be okay. Then moving on to fats. Again, if our mortality is the baseline, we can our mortality risk for heart disease increases if we have more saturated fat, trans fat, which is present in oil, margarine, dairy products, and meat. They all contain saturated fat. If you look at monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat, we are talking about nuts, avocado, and other very healthy forms of fat. So these actually have an effect of reducing the baseline risk of heart disease. So this slide tells you so much more about what I want to communicate. This is another simple look at one dietary intervention, which is walnuts. We are talking about 5 to 10 walnuts, 30 to 60 grams a day for 2 years, reduced several of the inflammatory markers that we just saw. This was also published very recently, and it says in heart patients, having walnuts may have such a beneficial effect every day. If you ask me which diet should we follow, there are hundreds and hundreds of diets that are around. These are the diets that are most studied and for the specific condition. If you're looking at reducing diabetes, Mediterranean diet and plant-based diet may be the best. Low-fat diet is useful, and the DASH diet, dietary approaches to stop hypertension, specifically works for lowering blood pressure as well. To reduce weight, all these diets seem to have a good effect. But to reduce cardiac disease, to reduce the risk of coronary events, Mediterranean diet has the most evidence, and equally or even more beneficial may be a whole food-based, plant-based diet. If you look at how to consume or look at food itself on a daily basis, about two-thirds to three-fourths of our intake should be complex carbohydrates. Proteins about 10 to 15%, fat about 10 to 15%. Ideally, mostly healthy fat, which comes in the form of poly and monounsaturated fats. So plenty of fruits and vegetables in every meal, limiting the added sugars to less than 10%. That is the key thing. So processed foods we have to really limit. Now I will switch to a 55-year-old South Asian, a cousin of mine actually. I met a couple of months ago when I visited them in August. He has absolutely no cardiac events, no heart attack, stroke, diabetes, or hypertension. But myself being a cardiologist, he showed me his numbers. His total cholesterol is 248, HDL 47, which is good. LDL is on the higher side at 139. Triglycerides 150 is normal. For him, it is 312. He is not at all obese. His waist circumference is 33 inches. His BMI is in the normal range, 22, and his weight is 156 pounds for 5 foot 11 height. And we calculated using the UK Q risk score. You can do it on Google. You can just calculate your risk for 10 years starting in 2020 until 2030. His risk for 100 people with the exact same age profile and of Asian origin, about 9 of them in his profile will have a chance for a heart attack. That's what this risk profiling says. We have American Heart Association risk profile, but the deliberate reason I used the UK system is because it takes South Asian as a specific risk factor, and family history also it considers specifically. And if you look at 3 months later, how is he doing? He followed some of the tips that I gave him. He's not taken up our heartful living yet, wholesome way, but he's already skipped breakfast for the last 2 months. He has given up white rice and taken up quinoa and brown rice instead. He has given up whole eggs and shrimp and moved to egg white alone. In South India, we eat plenty of dosa, so you can look at it as a tortilla here. And instead of three of that for dinner, he now has only two. So he has done some changes to his way of life for only 2 months. So I'm going to show you the numbers from last week. His cholesterol has come down by less than half. His triglycerides is again much within the normal range. His LDL, if it is below 70, then we can actually have a chance of stopping and even reversing the natural atherosclerotic process in the heart. So that means we have a significant chance of reducing risk for heart attack, stroke, and other problems. His is not 70, it is actually 50. It's come down dramatically. His BMI has actually moved from within normal range to the low normal range, and his weight has come down by about 10 pounds. And I did his Q risk score once again. Compared to August, now it has nearly come down by 30%. It's only about 5.7%. So this much change with very simple lifestyle changes, healthy, normal BMI people are able to achieve in real world. So I'm just showing you what the potential of lifestyle is in heart disease. I am a cardiologist looking at echocardiograms every day. Both these patients, and I'm showing you their hearts is the left ventricle, that's the main pump. That's what we are always looking at. And both of them are 60 years, but the one on the left side, his heart looks like a 75-year-old based on the amount of aging changes in the form of stiffness, calcium in the heart, and aging related changes that we can visualize within seconds of looking at the ultrasound on the heart. So although 60, his heart inside is actually like a 75-year-old. Whereas this same another 60-year-old person looks like a 45-year-old inside. So how come chronological age is not the same as biological age? Because this biological age is what really predicts our probability of survival. This is our future. Now I'm shifting gears to talk to you a little bit about aging itself. We've been looking at this for nearly 100 years now. And 100 years of aging research I've summarized in this one busy slide. What I'm showing you is unicellular organisms, insects, spiders, fleas, fish, mice, rats, dogs. What the story is if you take these life forms and starve them to about 70% of their normal food you give, which means about 30-40% restriction of calories, we would imagine that the animal will become malnourished and die. But at about 30% of calorie restriction, a miracle seems to happen. They live their normal lifespan and exceed it by 30, 50, sometimes even 100%. There is this life form that exceeds it by 300%. So this is science, and this is across all life forms, from insects up to monkeys and dogs. So how does calorie restriction make us live longer? The short answer is we don't know exactly, but how can we extrapolate this to our health? This is a study done in monkeys about 10 years ago. Both these monkeys are in their older age, but the one on the left side looks its appropriate age, whereas on the right side, it took a 30% calorie restriction for a few years, and it ends up looking insanely young. So the monkey story is we can stop aging. With 30% reduction in calories, cancer came down significantly in the monkey model, heart disease dropped 80%, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, cholesterol issues did not drop 50, 60, 70, it dropped 100%. So basically, none of the monkeys in the 30% calorie restriction group developed diabetes at all. So basically, they ended up outliving their natural life expectancy. And this was published in Science in 2009. Then you may ask, Doc, you're talking about monkeys. Now we are human beings. We cannot just like that stop eating, right? For that, we moved on to human studies. And this was also published in the last 4 years, looking at the people who are in their 30s with normal BMI. Look at their BMI, it is about 25, which is normal, and their body fat percentage is about 33%. Then they are taking a calorie restriction. And what is happening to them is, is I want to show you here. Yes. By taking calorie restriction of 25% for 2 years, they lost about 10 kilograms. BMI reduced from 25 to 22. And we are seeing within the normal range, they are getting healthier. Blood pressure, which is normal, is getting lower. Cholesterol and diabetes markers. So they are not diabetic yet, even the control group, but they are getting even healthier. So basically, 35-year-olds are becoming closer to 25-year-old healthy people. We are able to show by restricting food intake, we can stop aging wherever we go. That is what the study is. And this is published in the most prestigious medical journal 2 years ago. And this is not cardiology research, this is aging research. And when I compare it to heart disease, we've done this for with cholesterol medicine, statin, by reducing inflammatory marker, high sensitivity CRP, we have shown that we can significantly reduce heart disease. Whereas with calorie restriction, we are getting the exact same high sensitivity CRP reduction. Whereas in this, the heart disease patients, it's from a much higher number, it's dropping 30%. Whereas in this healthy study, it's within the normal range that it is dropping further. But the long-term beneficial effect is the same, reduced heart disease and in fact, nearly stopping aging itself internally, biological aging. So to summarize all that in one picture, if this is our lifespan, we can increase our lifespan by taking a voluntary calorie restriction. This is the real message that I want to leave you with. The restriction may be sweet spot at around 20 to 40%. Beyond that, if you cut back calories, we will increase the risk for immune problems, infections, other problems, and we'll go into starvation, and our risk for mortality increases. So about 30% calorie restriction may be the sweet spot for us to reach optimal lifespan. So if you ask me how to fix diabetes, obesity, lipids, dementia, heart attack, stroke, atrial fibrillation, kidney failure, all these complex equations can be summarized in one simple equation like Einstein did. And all these risk factors, cardiovascular disease is truly equivalent to aging. If we can understand aging and stop it, it is not cosmetic face level, it is biological aging I'm talking about. We can truly reduce our risk for cardiovascular problems and death itself. So, diabetes is the same as obesity, heart disease is the same as aging. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with in the next 5-10 minutes is a quick snapshot on how we translate this in Heartful Living as Smile and Huge Diet. So, this program we've had formally for the last 5 years in person on Fridays on my personal time. We've been doing it in Colombia for 20 cardiac patients and their families. We talk about diet, exercise, stress reduction, so many aspects, along with improving uh, sleep and mindfulness meditation. So the idea is self-inquiry, which means a deeper self-understanding of the meaning of life itself. That is the basis of more health and confidence and purpose, thereby heart disease can be controlled better. So this has been the premise of our work for the last 5 to 10 years. But since COVID started, we are not doing this in-person sessions. Instead, the whole program is now online and it's all recorded in June and July. That's the slide I'm showing you. And all this is available for free for everyone to view at your own free time through High Life Journey. This is the website. If you go to www.highlifejourney.org and create a username with a username and password, you can view all these lectures and see what the whole program is all about. Self inquiry, what is it? How do we systematically understand ourselves? Any knowledge that we gain is with time and over generations we have accumulated, and this has allowed us to become so much more efficient as life forms. This causes all our material success and learning and skills and habits. But self inquiry is intrinsically very different. It is unlearning of uh, acquired knowledge. This is not transferable. For everyone, it starts in zero. Unfortunately, every day for everybody, it has to start fresh. So you cannot say, yesterday I did a lot of self inquiry, today I'll have a good life. No, every day you have to start fresh. And this leads to happiness and fulfillment in life. This gives us the resilience to cope with not only this COVID that we are facing with in 2020, but whatever other challenges that 2024, 2027 may bring for us. We can embrace it with the best skill set that we are able to muster. So the person who is synonymous with self-inquiry is Ramana Maharishi, who says self-inquiry consists in retaining the mind in the self. Silence is the real teaching. So if I stay quiet, how can I communicate further with you? If Trisha had given me 2 hours, for 20 minutes, I will sit down and we can all meditate. But today we'll not do any actual mindfulness sessions. So we'll just continue with the slide set so that we'll have some time for question answers. So I'll show you one example of my personal journey with self-inquiry. This is my daughter Laya. She is now 10 years old and she is part of today's discussion. And this is my wife, who's a kidney specialist, nephrologist. We went on a hike in Slovenia. This is about 2.5 years ago. And after 1 hour of hiking with our tour guide, he said that mountain peak is where we were heading. And I was surprised. I thought he was joking. And really, he took us up there. And that's the picture. Sitting up there, such a steep incline, it was a lifetime memory for me to climb such a height and enjoy that day. But the reason I'm sharing this story is because of this tour guide. His name is Timo. And he trained as a chef. He has no religion because they are all atheists for several generations in former Yugoslavia, a communist country. He comes from a poor background. He's not yet been in an aeroplane ever in his life. He has no major savings at 28. He had just lost his only child at 4 months of age. And despite being a chef, he had taken up being a tour guide. And he prefers to live a self inquiry based introspective lifestyle. He tells food is taken for granted by people. That's why they lose value when they pay money for food. He says food is already lost its meaning. People, he himself eats only 1 or 2 meals every day. He is twice as fit as me, and the peak that I showed you, he can do 5 of those that same day before he goes home. He is that fit. So that was a very humbling experience because I played a lot of tennis and I think I'm pretty healthy in my mid 40s, and he's showing me that with much lesser food he's able to survive a very physical life. My job is a doctor at the end of the day, but he is a tour guide. So his journey in life is to show his community and colleagues and friends how to celebrate life. So he has so much enthusiasm for life and he eats way lesser than I do. So that was the message that I took from Slovenia. I have to just think about the father of India, where I come from. Mahatma Gandhi says, there is no prayer without fasting and no fast without prayer. God comes to the hungry in the form of food. So this I realized only when I started myself experimenting with fasting. 12 hours if you don't put food in the body from 7 p.m. at night till 7 a.m. breakfast, that itself is a 12-hour fast. That itself is good. And many of our community members don't do that already. They have to have a midnight snack, this and that, to keep their body going. Cycle fast, 16, 18 hours we can do. Warrior fast, the whole day fast is 24 hours. That's what I learned how to do. It took me about 2 to 3 months. The first couple of months, it's turbulent in the form of feeling dizzy. Sometimes it feels like there's a little bit of earthquake going on around us. So it's a little challenging. I feel jittery, but this took me only 2 months to recognize how to acclimatize to the fasting. Now, Tuesday evenings, if I finish dinner at 7 p.m., until Wednesday evening, 7 p.m., I can comfortably survive just on water. So, this I've been doing for 2.5 years now, once a week, or roughly once in 5 days is what I do. So, this is a mindful eating scale. They say when you start feeling hungry, have your meal and stop when you're satisfied. So if you are feeling really full and stuffed, that's not good. If you are starving and cranky and dizzy, that's not good. The reason is if you are stuffing yourself, it's going to translate into obesity. If you're starving, you're going to end up eating a lot more, and then again, that's going to lead to obesity. So that's why mindful eating means eating a little bit at a time and getting hungry again before you eat. But this is fine if your BMI is 22. What if people need to lose weight, which is nearly majority of my cardiac patients need to lose some weight to get healthier, more confident, and to reduce their risk for future heart trouble. So this mindful eating does not work for my patients who need to lose weight. So I ask people to go all the way, not stop at 4, to try hunger, to try very hunger, and to try starving. What will happen after that? Are we going to faint? Are we going to die? No. Our body, if we smile 20 times an hour, that's my request to everybody. Every waking hour, try to force yourself to smile 20 times. If you cannot physically smile, connect with enough gratitude. It may be for your family, for your work, for the environment. In 2020, many patients say, I'm grateful just for being alive, doc. So it can be for whatever reason, but relax, smile, be grateful, and connect with plenty of water. That day that you're not putting food in the body, put plenty of water into the body. This is all is needed to switch to ketosis. I'm sure you heard of keto diet, ketogenic diet, eating more meat. This ketosis that I teach is natural ketosis that comes from fasting. So the glucose reserves that we use from the stomach and then from the liver are depleted. So that when there is no more uh, glucose in the body, then we go into ketosis, which means we start burning fat. Is that good? The answer is it is healthy and it is not natural and normal for us to burn fat as fuel. That's why the fat is there in the first place, to be used. So, one other quick concept is emotional craving, which means eating anytime specific foods. This emotional craving persists despite being full, and food makes us feel more guilty and ashamed of ourselves. I was never an emotional eater. First 45 years of my life, I was a habitual eater. My parents are doctors, so I had very healthy habits. That's what I thought. So I would eat by the clock, 8 a.m., 12, and 7 p.m., 3 meals a day. And this is actually based on our convenience so that we can place our attention somewhere else. And we assume eating is a waste of our time so that we can move on with other important things in our life. The better way to eat is when we are truly physically hungry. This is how life has evolved. Forget mankind. Millions of years we have evolved through physical hunger. That has been the motivation for our evolution to where we are in 2020. So this starts several hours after food, and people are generally open to healthier options. On top, I've shown what foods we emotionally crave for and what foods we are willing to accept if we are genuinely physically hungry. And this goes away when we put good food into our body. And this is where we will feel grateful and satisfied while we are eating itself. So, this is, I feel, the healthiest way of living. And I've moved on to physical hunger in the last 2 to 3 years of my life. I'm not eating by the clock. anymore. So my reminder is smile 20 times every hour and then drink plenty of water if you're trying this fasting. When asked about happiness, there is no path to happiness. Happiness itself is the path. That's what Buddha invites us to think about. So that level of gratitude can be for anything in life. It may be for simple events that happened today. It may be for things like your job and circumstances and people in your life. And in 2020, I'm seeing more and more people being grateful for life itself. But if we connect with enough gratitude, we will find smiling and relaxation are intuitive and natural way of life itself. And that much of relaxation is needed if we want to lose excess weight. Otherwise, when we build stress, that itself prevents us from reaching our weight goals and health goals, and our heart health suffers as well. So this hunger gratitude experience, HUGE, means hunger and gratitude experience combined. So I told you what this gratitude is, and hunger is fasting. So what is this different from intermittent fasting? This is a lifestyle choice itself. Intermittent fasting will reduce your risk for heart disease, diabetes, dementia, autoimmune disease, so many other things. And ketosis occurs once a week, and the focus is on returning to normal food after you finish the fast. That's what we are focused on. And hunger is looked at still as an unpleasant thing that we cope with so that the other 6 days we can be healthy. The maximum calorie restriction that I've come across with intermittent fasting is about 20 to 30% at most. And this itself is sufficient if you are aiming at living to 100 years. We are more ambitious with heartful living. What we teach in is self-inquiry. So we use hunger and fasting and gratitude to do the self-inquiry. So this is the meditative program. And beyond these same health benefits of heart disease, dementia, and cancer, we have so much improvement in creativity, sleep, mood, resilience, happiness, compassion, optimism, confidence goes sky high. This is the real benefit of this meditative program. And we can go into ketosis every day if we choose to. And being grateful after each meal. Hunger is a sign of life, it is not an unpleasant thing, and we accept it gracefully. If people are needing to lose weight, they can sustain 10, 20, 50, 60, 70% calorie restriction for weeks, for months, and now we have patients for years restricting calorie 50 to 60% and doing very well. They are not in supervised weight loss clinics, water fasting clinics that are available in Los Angeles and Florida. In Missouri, we don't have these type of water fast clinics, and people are doing it at their own home, in their own uh, with their own comfort foods, and still gaining this much calorie restriction and so much more health. And this has been now sustained for 5 years and longer by so many of our patients. To summarize, this diet means we have to celebrate food with our family and friends. Food is not a form of restriction, it's a form of celebration. We need 20 minutes. If you don't have 20 minutes to eat, my suggestion is skip that meal. When you have 20 minutes to sit down without television, without smart devices and news and other distractions, sit down for 20 minutes where you can chew the food, relish it, and there is no healthy drink or no healthy snacks. We don't need those things in between the meals. Cook at home. This is something which is becoming more of a forgotten way of life. We have to cook at home. Otherwise, no restaurant is designing to make us live healthier and longer. They are all designed to make money. That it's a business, any restaurant or a packaged food industry. The important thing is make smart choices when you're shopping at the grocery store. Remember, 9 out of 10 things in the grocery store are not healthy. Find the 1 out of 10 things that is healthy for you. And if they are the only things in your shopping cart again and again, over weeks, over months, you'll find you at home, you're left with only healthy choices. And simply put, if it tastes good, stay away from it. Because when taste food, good food, I mean, good tasting comes from fat, sugar, and salt. This is how they mix these three things and make these packaged and processed foods and pre-made foods that are the most unhealthy options for us. There must be plenty of fiber in food. in the carbohydrate, and that's present naturally in fruits and vegetables. And if you process them less and your plate is colorful, then you're eating healthy. This is what we teach. And remember, eat only if you're truly hungry. Appreciate with gratitude the food and the eating experience. That itself will gain us as much health as we need. We are divided into several generations. Wherever we are, we've tried to reach so many of our, say, for instance, on the right end is my patient, his wife, his children, his grandchildren. How many hearts can we save? That is the question. Today's meeting, I've invited people who have family history of heart disease. So if one parent has heart attack, there is a close to 60% increase in heart disease. If both parents have it, there is a 300% increase in heart disease risk. If that heart attack happened before the age of 50, that increased the risk to 250%. If both parents had it before the age of 50, then the risk is 600, 700% higher. So this is a substantial risk related to families who have heart disease. So that's what I want you to remember. So I'm going to skip some of this and move on to how our program has really worked. So I'm going to show you actual patient charts and their stories. On the x-axis is time. This is, say, September of 2019 to January of 2020, only 4 or 5 months. This patient lost this much weight because he went on a 50-day fast. He is a patient with triple cell disease needing a bypass surgery with all the other heart risk factors. But this 50-day water only fast is not what I'm showing this for. But after this, he made the important change that is keeping him healthy 1 year later. That is, he has taken up a vegan, plant based whole food diet. That is what is keeping him active, healthy, angina free, and he has not kept that appointment with the open heart surgery. He's participated in our program in the summer before this, summer of 2019. That's what encouraged him to go on this vegan based diet. This is a 69-year-old lady who has every organ that you can think of giving her trouble. And when I made this phone call to her, her weight has not come down much, but she has participated in Heartful Living for a whole year. I'm not able to relieve all these health problems. Her medicines have come down by about, I would say, 30-40%. There are so many other patients who have stopped 18 of their 20 medicines. But for her, because she has much more advanced disease, she still continues to have these problems. And when I made this phone call, she had compression fracture for 3 of her vertebrae, and she was in severe back pain and not able to get out of the bed. Why am I sharing her story? I want you to listen to her own words. What do you feel grateful about?
That I wake up every morning.
Excellent. You started out saying that you're an optimistic person.
I've always been optimistic and always figured I had at least the glass half full.
Now, how do you look at your life?
Instead, my glass is always full and overflowing.
So she's saying life is brimming with joy despite her age and all the risk factors and all the diseases, not just the risk factors. And she's bedbound when she's talking to me on a telecardiology visit. This is another patient. These graphs are the most dramatic because this patient has the trust in her own ability to change her life itself. She has lost 45 pounds by eating one meal a day and continuing to stay hungry now out to 10 months. And the result is he feeling 10 years younger. This graph you might see in people who have gastric bypass surgery. Otherwise, it is not easy to see this type of weight reduction from 150 all the way down to 128 pounds, about kilograms. So this is about 50-pound weight reduction that is happening within few months. This is again very similar heart patient going through our program, and this is all in their own words, feeling 7 years younger and off nearly every heart medicine. And this is from 2018, sustaining all the way until the last visit with me in May of this year. This is another patient. The time scale is different. This we are looking at 15-20 years time frame. So bottom line is from the age of 60-65, this patient has made a commitment to losing weight, eating healthier. She has lost about 100 kilograms and now trying to lose 25 more and wants to lose even more at this point. So there is so much extra weight that has come off and that is keeping her healthy and more importantly, first of all, alive. Because excess weight at this level is not compatible with any quality of life. So this can be sustained, this type of self-inquiry, and it is not with effort. When I say sustain, it's not like you stop food and you sit around waiting to get healthy. No, these people are all enjoying their life. They are teaching this to their children, grandchildren, and they're going and volunteering in their communities, doing whatever they can. And the only thing I tell them is, you show that you're happy and you're confident. That is the real message that you're giving to your community, so that others in your neighborhood will recognize that health is not some foreign thing that has to come through sophisticated balloons and medicines and stents. You can get healthier in your own way of life. And despite any age and health issues, you can find confidence in life. That's what this whole thing is about. So now I'm going, all the people in this room are the principals of the various schools in the town that I work, Columbia, Missouri. Ours is a university town. And the entire school system, I gave a talk so that the leaders can take it to their school children. The reason is we did our own research and showed if kids at the age of 16 are depressed, 15, 20 years later, their chance of obesity and hypertension is higher. We have shown this clearly. People who are pessimistic, 15 years later, their risk for heart disease goes up two, threefold. So, optimism, confidence, all these things matter at the age of 10, 15, 20. Throughout life, it matters. But if you are optimistic when you start your life, you're going to be healthier also down the road. Now, we have submitted a NIH grant for $1 million to look at our Heartful Living program for 70 days, how we can do ACE 70, which is altruism compassion. So, what it is it's a mind body intervention to reduce the long term risk for heart disease and inflammation in the body by increasing adolescents' participation in altruistic behavior, making someone else smile, doing something kind out of your routine for 1 minute. And the challenge here is the person receiving your kindness should not even know where it came from. So that is what internalizes that gratitude and empathy and gives the maximum benefit. So we have the science for it. We want to see if it can really show the benefit in this COVID world. So that's what we are trying to research. To summarize, intermittent fasting is amazing if you can skip 1 or 2 meals in a day. Your immune system against COVID will be better. Your risk of diabetes will come down, just as your weight and risk for heart disease and cancer risk will also come down. But, but the question is, can you reduce angina, avoid heart stents, heal the atherosclerotic plaque that is already there in our hearts, control blood pressure, diabetes, cut back 9 out of 10 heart medicines, stop and reverse aging? Not only that, make our families healthier. The answer is we can do all of this at no cost, in no time, without any effort, at home, and we can sustain this without issues for a lifetime if we focus on self inquiry. And hunger gratitude experience is one of the key aspects of self inquiry. So, all the benefits of fasting, plus the confidence, resilience, depression, anxiety, compliance with anything else like smoking cessation or whatever else we want to place our attention at, and better relationship, more meaningful connection with our own families, with our colleagues at work. All these things are within our grasp when we connect with ourselves more meaningfully through self inquiry. So we treat heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and cancer. We prevent mental issues, burnout, which is such a big deal in doctors, unfortunately. So I know Trisha is going to be a doctor soon. So stress is a big deal for doctors. To avoid physician burnout and risk for long-term dementia, all these things are connected with self-inquiry and the experience of life itself in the form of relationships, performance at work, how we perceive life with happiness and confidence, and the energy we feel every morning when we wake up. This is what we talk about. And all of this is available, the entire 7, 8 week series, if you go to High Life Journey. And we incorporate the latest in cardiology, positive psychology, mindfulness meditation, and 5 10,000 year Siddha Yoga techniques and combine it in our current High Life program, which we've now had for 10 years. I want to thank my collaborators in psychology, exercise physiology, IT, and numerous people without whom we couldn't have done what we have done in the last 10 years. I'm just going to show their names here. And smile is the last thing I want to leave you with. Self inquiry based, multi generational involvement in lifestyle enhancement. So, at the center is my patient, but their families and their children and their grandchildren, they can also now aim for better heart health and holistic wellness through participation in self inquiry and heartful living and all these things, because we can just give them this link, High Life Journey, and all these material are available. And the lectures in June and July are recorded, keeping my 10-year-old daughter in mind. And because we know from our own research that by 15 years of age, if we are optimistic, if we are positive and confident, we have a much better shot at a lifetime of better health. So we want to start before the 15th birthday from the age of 10 years. So that's what our ambition is. And we've started doing this now for the last 3 4 months. All my patients, I don't just invite them to participate in Heartful Living, I'm inviting their children and grandchildren. So for every patient now, we have about 20 of their family members trying to gradually incorporate these concepts. And in October and November, every Monday at 10 a.m. Central Time, which would be in East Coast, it would be 11 a.m. We have these high life advanced sessions, which means we are not going through the same June and July discussions, but we are doing a little more refined and fine-tuned discussions. So tomorrow's discussion at 11 a.m. Eastern Time will be on hunger and how hunger makes us free. Hunger is freedom is what we're going to talk about. How to find inner joy and freedom through connecting with hunger itself. That's the discussion in case you have the chance to join us. Otherwise, if you go to High Life Journey, in a week you will find today's discussion, hopefully, and tomorrow's. All we are trying to make it available so that we want to spread the message to any and everyone who is interested in this type of getting healthier and holistic cardiac wellness. So I'll stop here and gladly take any questions you have. You'll have to unmute yourself. Thanks to all of you for joining. Thanks, Trisha, for giving me this chance. I said I will finish in 40 minutes. I guess I took close to an hour. But I'm glad to answer as many questions as Trisha will allow me to talk about.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chockalingam. This was an absolutely incredible presentation. Um, I'm going to stop recording now so that everyone can, feel free to open up their videos and just really ask any questions that you have, if that's okay. And we will upload this video onto our YouTube channel and we'll send it over to Dr. Chockalingam to put it in his outlets as well.
So my question is, Trisha, can I continue to record? Because the question answers also people may want to view, right? No? It's
Yes.
up to you. So I thought I hit recording on my end. So if it's okay with you, I'll continue to record it. But you're most welcome to ask your questions. We'll try to go through as many as possible.
Yes, sounds great. So if anyone has any questions, we'll get going with that.
Yeah, thank you. That was so informative and great to learn about. I want to ask, you emphasized that it's very important for young people to develop a attitude of gratitude for their food that they eat. But usually the culture is shaped by advertising. So we are trained to look at food and be like, oh, you should buy it. How can they counteract this as a society in real life?
So you gave the answer in the question. We have to come away from being manipulated by the industry. Food is a big industry where there is so much money to be made. So people are making money off the food that we eat, which is okay. But if we don't look out for our own health, we cannot expect food industry, local government, national government, science, or anything to fix us. So when people are 70 years and taking up self-inquiry or hunger gratitude experience, they get healthy. But if 10 and 15-year-olds take up holistic living, then the chances of us continuing to stay healthy is so much higher, because this becomes a part of who we are at a much younger age. And the atherosclerosis, there is evidence that it starts unfortunately by the age of 5, 10, 15. There is already atherosclerosis in our hearts. That blockage is already starting. So a heart attack that happens at 60 actually started the problem at the age of 15, 20. So the sooner we are aware of these issues and we take responsibility as individuals, we'll be better off. And leading by example is the best way. So if I'm unhealthy, I cannot hope my daughter will not eat unhealthy. So I have to eat right, eat the good, healthy, nutritious food, and then by example only we can lead and guide the next generations.
Thank you.
I have a question. So thank you for your presentation and thank you for all the inspiring work that you're doing. I was wondering, why is it that South Asian people have a higher risk for cardiovascular disease?
We don't know the exact answer. Some of it may be in our environment. All of this may be related to self-selection. I showed one picture of parts of the world where we all migrated from the science says we all came from Africa, migrated to different parts of the world, and our skin color is different for different regions of the world now based on the latitude that we inhabited. But the short thing is, say for India, we've always had droughts and famines, and food has not been plentiful. And genetically, we may be a much more efficient system. We may be like a Tesla, not Tesla, I should say, a very fuel efficient car compared to a gas guzzler. So the actual question should be the other way around. How come Indians are able to thrive, sustain, do reasonably well in life with much less food than the other parts of the world? So that is our actual reality. Instead, if we try to go to McDonald's in Chennai and Bangalore and eat a lot of westernized fast food, and we end up with the trouble, the reality is we don't need that much calories. That's what it ends up being. And any lesser amount of food ends up being toxic to the South Asian gene. So a similar thing I'm seeing with African Americans also. Little excess salt, their blood pressure level goes up so much higher. So every race has slight differences. But bottom line, most of the world, if we can keep our BMI below 25, we are going to be very healthy. For South Asians, we have to keep it below 22.5. So if we keep it there, we'll be very healthy. If you look at fat percentage for men, below 15% is ideal. I've always been on the thinner side, but my fat percentage is at 20%, 18%, despite whatever fasting I'm doing. So it's not that easy. You'll have to be a real athlete to have the fat percentage below 15%, or you'll have to do more fasting like Gandhi did. And for women, 15 is not the number, it's about 25. For women, 25, for men, 15, body fat composition, if that's what you're going to look at. Excellent. So there's no simple answer, but we need lesser food and we have to be careful of the excess inches much more than the rest of the world if you're of Asian descent.
This is related to your response. You said that the healthy food will vary for different people. Oftentimes, people encourage parents to feed their children milk when they're growing so they'll be healthy. What do you think about this?
Is milk healthy? That's the question. Milk, there are so many types of milk in different parts of the world. So some of our genes also may accept milk differently. overall, the evidence is away from animal products. Milk and cheese and all dairy are also animal products. So they are on the inflammatory side. Plant-based milk, almond milk, hemp milk, soy milk, they may be on the neutral side. But still, we don't go into the anti-inflammatory aspect. So yogurt, fermentation may make milk in the yogurt form healthier. Greek yogurt definitely has plenty of protein. But milk itself, what am I going to advise? It's hard to give up milk altogether, but if children can be uh, encouraged to try plant-based milk at a younger age, that may be the best option. Once they are weaned off mother's milk at the age of less than 1 year, from then itself, if we can avoid dairy products, it may be healthiest from the cardiac standpoint.
Thank you.
That is the first time I got that question. Nice. Trisha, you've not asked anything yet.
I have one question. Can you explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? And
Good. This is very important because I'm so happy you asked this question, Trisha. We talk about hunger, gratitude experience, and fasting going to 24 hours. There are some people who should not fast. Type 1 diabetics, people who have eating disorders, people who are pregnant. So these people cannot do fasting. Now, answering Trisha's question, 90 to 95% of diabetes is type 2, which means it is obesity, manifesting as body's sugar levels going higher than normal. That is what people are needing to recognize, and doctors find it hard to put it across in that type of blunt words to patients. You're fat, you're obese, you need to lose weight. Like that, it's hard to talk to patients. It's not cultural, it's not polite. So they say insulin resistance, this and that, and they put 3 medicines, 6 medicines, try to fix them medically. But 9 out of 10, or even more than 9 out of 10 diabetics have type 2 diabetes, which is metabolic syndrome, obesity related. This type 1 diabetes is because insulin is not produced by the pancreas. That is likely due to some autoimmune, some viral. We don't know the exact basis for it, but typically it affects children in their first 20 years of life, and they tend to be normal BMI. They may be on the bigger side too, but their body is just not making enough insulin. So for them, fasting is unsafe and it will not make them healthier. For them, adequate amount of insulin and closely monitoring their food intake is the key thing. This type of fasting, type 1 diabetics should not do. It's not a lifestyle disease. Type 2 diabetes is fully lifestyle responsive because it comes from a bad lifestyle, sedentary, fast food based lifestyle. Whereas type 1 is an autoimmune disease. Thanks for that wonderful question, Trisha.
thank you.
I was wondering about omega 3s. I've read in certain places that omega 3s derived from fish are really good for cardiovascular health. And as someone who is vegan, I get my omega 3s from and omega 6s from flaxseed and nuts and avocados. So, what is like the medical perspective on it, omega 3?
What you're doing is the best thing. You can get it from fish oil tablets too, if you are not, but this is very healthy forms, and we believe in cardiology. This is one of the few things that helps stop atherosclerosis and reverses. Atherosclerosis means that gradual buildup of blockage in the pipes. There are three main arteries taking blood to the heart. If gradually that process happens over 20, 30 years, that's atherosclerosis. That can be arrested and reversed with healthy monounsaturated, polyunsaturated fats and omega 3. So that you get from flaxseed and hemp and avocados and things like that. And fish oil is also good. That's the main reason why fish itself is healthy. Fresh caught sea fish. But vegan diet, this is the best way to do it. You're doing the right thing to protect your heart health.
Thank you.
have a question.
Yes.
At what point do you go from taking medicines to control type 2 diabetes to then needing insulin?
So over the last 5-10 years that we've been doing this Heartful Living program, we've had numerous dietitians, nutritionists, endocrinologists attend our program, and they follow my way of life for themselves. They do fasting, they can do calorie restriction, but even the endocrinologists who work with us in my neighborhood, they find it challenging to teach this to patients because there are so many nuances attached to it. But in our program, we've had tremendous success because it is done not by Anand Chockalingam. It is done by the patient, by themselves in their own time. They are able to monitor their sugar levels, eat the right things, slowly incorporating better things, gradually increasing the fasting to about 14 hours overnight, that sort of thing, and then pushing it on one day of the week to 24 hours. All these things are possible. So your specific question was?
Just at what level? Um, I guess your
When do you need insulin is what you're asking.
INR, it gets to a
For
certain point, then you
yeah, for
can't need to put you on insulin.
yeah, it's not the INR. We talk about hemoglobin A1C, glycosylated hemoglobin.
Oh, A1C. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So if it goes above a certain level, say 8 or 9, the chances of bringing it just with oral medicines is lesser. So above the hemoglobin A1C of 10, for sure they need insulin. All that is fine. I'm fine with the endocrinologist managing diabetes. I don't manage that for my patients. But what I teach is the self-inquiry, fasting, and when patients do that, I tell them to go to their endocrinologist and dietitian and show them the sugar numbers. Doc,
Okay.
my insulin, my glucose levels in the last 2 weeks, 2 months is like this. What should I do? Then they are more comfortable cutting back on the insulin. I have so many patients who were on insulin for last 10 years. Now they are needing zero amount of insulin. That is because they have changed their lifestyle. They are continuing to exercise. They do a little bit of weight training, resistance training in their 60s, 70s, because when they build a little more muscle, they are able to burn the calories that much more efficiently without needing exogenous insulin. So there are numerous aspects. So today I just showed you those graphs which are still out of the world. There's nowhere published that type of graphs where people lose that much weight just by lifestyle without supervised weight loss program, without gastric bypass. But when you do that much weight reduction, you can easily, very, very easily give up all insulin for the rest of our life. We can give it up. Insulin also is not permanent for type 2 diabetics.
Okay.
Whatever,
Thank you.
if you're on 6 diabetes medicines, 8 blood pressure medicines, 2 cholesterol medicines, everything we can stop with improving. All these things will happen over months naturally.
Okay.
Do
You'll
you
have to
recommend
unmute yourself. Yes.
do you recommend doing intermittent fasting just starting out? Like once a week, twice a week? How do you recommend just starting off?
If you go to highlifejourney.org, what you'll see is overall 14 hours. Most nights we all can do, unless we have major malnutrition, underweight, things like that. 14 hours means 7 p.m. we brush our teeth after dinner, 9 a.m. we have breakfast. In that 14 hours, human beings can do very fine. That 14 hours includes the hours that we are sleeping, which should be averaging about 7-8 hours, right? So 14 hours most nights, plus once a week, I would suggest going to 18, 20, 24 hours once a week. This is what I believe will give us the best benefit as far as cardiac, metabolic syndrome, diabetes risk, and equally or even more importantly, reduction of 70-80% cancer long term and dementia, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. All these things comes down significantly with two separate things. One is calorie restriction. That means eating a little lesser than we normally should eat, even if we are normal BMI. Second is fasting. So both have independent benefit. Both are combined in hunger gratitude experience. So we willingly, gracefully accept being hungry as a sign of being alive. So we can go into ketosis several times a week and still feel more energetic than ever before. So that is what this invitation to you is, to try and you experience it for yourself. Anybody can do this. Definitely above the age of 18, I believe this is very, very useful. From the age of 10 to 18, calorie restriction may not be a good idea, but even then, going up to 18, 20 hours once a week may be perfectly fine, especially if kids are on the upper end of normal or on the overweight side. Athletes, when they are trying to build muscle, when they are trying to compete most of the week, it's not easy. But these things can be done safely in most people.
Thank you.
I thought it was really interesting that like you can predict obesity and cardiovascular disease from a child who's 15 years old and who is depressed or is having trouble socially. I was wondering how kind of like what factors result in that prediction. Is it the amount of stress accumulated during that age, or is it that if a child is stressed during that age, they're more likely to be stressed when they're older?
So this was a study done on 20,000 adolescents. Every 5 years, 4 years, the same adolescents were again surveyed. So it's all self responses that were tallied and put together. So we have several thousand data points sets that we can use machine learning to try and piece out the differences, and we've come up with these findings. If you ask what is the mechanism, how pessimism causes heart disease 20 years later, it could have several reasons. One is having socioeconomic challenges and learning issues, uh, outlook itself. Some people are born very upbeat and optimistic. Some have a more, I would say, subdued outlook towards life, towards relationships, tending to be alone, lack of trust in people around them. So all these things may make more life choices for them, which are continuing to be a negative cycle. Whereas the one who is optimistic, he'll make more optimistic friends who will tell him the world outside is beautiful. The day is nice, even though if it may be snowing or raining, he'll say, "Oh, come on, let's go ski." Whereas if you say, "Oh, it's cold and snowy," winter days are going to be cold. We have to just accept them. So, what I'm trying to say is, perception is a lot of importance, not only in our day to day happiness, but cumulatively, it plays a very significant role in our level of confidence, happiness, and stress hormone that our body gets exposed to over months and years put together. So, all these things play a role, and our lifestyle also is very closely interrelated to how we perceive our reality. So if we can choose to be happy, if we choose to smile, be grateful. When I go and present these type of discussions with high school kids, I'll tell what happened last year. I went to Hickman High School, which is one of the big high schools here in our town. Out of 200 kids, when I asked, one kid stood up and said, "I'm grateful for being alive, for the bed to sleep on in the morning when I wake up, for having food on my table. I don't take anything for granted." This level of uh, accepting life, what do you think can make him unhappy? He's going to explore life in his own terms. He may end up doing a small job. He may end up being the president of the country, no matter what he does with his life. What I'm trying to say is our outlook makes such a big difference in how our reality shapes itself, and our health also is very, very closely linked to it. The sooner we make that choice, yes, my cup is half full, then we are much healthier. This is what we teach in Heartful Living. And for that, we use the heart and blood pressure and diabetes and diet and all that. The real message of Heartful Living is the cup is half full. No, no, it's not half empty. In fact, that cup, half full, half empty itself, is only a discussion. In reality, the cup is totally full and overflowing. That is our real message. And that's what one of my patients spoke. And I hope you heard her say that in her 60s with all her health issues. So, my request to you today, because you joined me today, is to, once we hang up from this conversation, close your eyes, 1 minute, sit down, find something that you are grateful for, make your heart smile, and then say your life is overflowing with joy. And then stick to that throughout life. Nobody can take it away from you, whatever circumstances. That is what I believe is our true reality. How to get there? for that, we are using hunger, gratitude, we are using altruism, compassion. We teach flow, exercise. So many things are there. If you are able to gradually go over the high life slide sets, I mean, the lecture recordings, you will gather more and more of the message from June and July. You're welcome to go through it. Tomorrow, you're welcome to join. In case you can, at 11 o'clock, you'll see how this self inquiry works. And I'll share that link through Trisha. Why don't I just post it here right now so that people will have it? What other questions can we talk about? Very nice questions I've heard so far. Any other questions we have for today? Or you had enough of a discussion? See, I just posted that link. I don't know if you're able to see it, cut and paste it from that chat box. So that is the link for tomorrow's session at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Tomorrow morning Central Time. We talk. So it's not going to be a big slideshow like this. It'll be more of a discussion where people who do this will hopefully come up and say how they're able to find confidence, find that optimism through whatever self-inquiry means that Heartful Living teaches, or whatever that works for them. Fasting is just one of the tools that we use. So I'm happy if you can join tomorrow. Any other questions that we want to discuss before we wind up?
If we have no more questions, then I will definitely share the link with our fraternity and with all of the different clubs that are here today. Um, Thank you so much, Dr. Chockalingam. This was absolutely incredible, and we really appreciate you giving your time to speak with us. We really, I'm sure everyone came out with a lot from this presentation. So.
Thanks so much, Trisha, for this wonderful opportunity and the amazing questions. Thanks so much. I thoroughly enjoyed joining you today.